With Splatoon 3's new Chill Season update, we got 3 brand new main weapons, something we haven't had for a long time. So today I want to break them down, how good they are, and what they're good and bad at. Keep in mind, as per usual with these ranking videos, that this is based off of top-level competitive play from both my own experience as a pro and watching other top-level players and teams. With that all being said, subscribe if you want to help me reach 100k by the end of the year, and let's start off with the Snipe Rider. This is a bit of a hybrid between a Splatling, Splat Charger, and a Bamboozler. This weapon's charge time is 72 frames, just 3 shorter than the normal Splat Charger, and the range is that of a splatter scope, but rather than getting 1 shot, you get 5. Once fully charged, you're able to shoot each one by one, and there's no time limit to this at all. You can wait as long as you want and keep the shots you need. These do 60 damage each, and while you're shooting them, you have a fairly good strafe speed, being close to that of the Bamboos. However, this comes with 3 major downsides. First off, if you don't full charge it, you do not get the extra shots, and you're doing under 60 damage, which is super low. Second off, there's no charge hold, so to get off all 5 shots, you have to only be walking around, which limits your movement quite drastically. And third of all, each charge takes a whopping 40% of your ink tank, being the most ink hungry out of every charger in the game. Though it is worth noting, if you don't use all your shots, you can refund a few of them by going into squid form early to at least help make up for that, but it's still obviously a huge ink cost. Now, on first glance, I think a lot of people are going to position like a splatter scope because of the amount of range you have. But what's going to end up happening is people are just going to easily be able to walk away before you can even hit them once, let alone twice. The range is there to more make it easy for you to catch up to people and hit multiple shots. I still think this thing is more backline than anything, but it's especially clear from the fact that they gave it Tacticooler that you're much more supposed to be positioning like a midline near your team and being able to use the range to follow up on people running away from you. That being said, I don't think it's quite as aggressive as something like the Bamboo. One thing that weapon can do very well is quickly go into squid form and out of it to get off its shots, where you are stuck strafing around, so you have to position a bit further away and in a bit different positions. So before I say how good it is, let's go over the kit, which is admittedly just flat out bad right now. I can see why they gave it Sprinkler, as it does struggle with special output, but not only does this thing not have a super good special right now balance-wise, but Sprinkler is also just not that great a sub, and being able to paint for a special isn't exactly exclusive to it, and it would have done much better with a sub that could help it position more aggressively. The more I think about it, the more I'm okay with Tacticooler. It's not the best special right now, since getting in and keeping yourself alive are both very important, so things tend to be dominated by stuff like missiles or HP specials like Crab Tank or Booyah Bomb. But honestly, the run speed and ink res are pretty useful for this thing with how it likes to position. It's nice with its team, since you'll typically be running more fast or combo heavy weapons that can play off of the damage this weapon puts out, and it's currently the only long range weapon to have Tacticooler, which could give it an interesting niche, maybe in a mode like Rainmaker. However, all of this is admittedly kind of optimistic thinking. Tacticooler isn't perfect with this thing, and it's also not the most amazing special right now. It just isn't horrible for it either. And as a whole, when paired with Sprinkler, it means the kit's incredibly mediocre at best. With the kit involved right now, I would probably label this as more of a mid-tier, as I don't really see too many situations or comps where it works well. However, I think the main weapon could potentially be much better. The only part about the main weapon I really think would need some form of buff could be its object damage. I'm okay with 60 since it doesn't combo with things, but really taking 9 shots to break a Crab Tank in a meta dominated by HP specials is a little bit of a problem for it right now, and it feels like a very unnecessary weakness. With that being said, I see a lot of room for this weapon to be pushed, and I don't really like to use the term potential very much, but this is definitely a weapon where I think people who one-trick this for a few months are going to become some absolutely scary pencil players. This sentence is weird. This game is weird. Moving on. So when Big Swig Roller's kit got revealed, I had no hesitation in saying that it would be dead on arrival unless if the main weapon was absolutely busted. And well, I like to say that I was wrong, because the main weapon isn't absolutely busted, but it is absolutely stupid. So pretty much everyone from Splatoon Twitter has seen this one funny clip of a Swig Roller being able to paint the entire Flounder Heights zone in one flick, and that is basically what this weapon is. It is zone cheese and literally nothing else. The horizontal flick on this weapon is the best paint in the entire game. It has solid painting range, it's good burst paint, meaning it's harder to contest, especially when other things like bombs and specials are thrown at the zone, and you have solid ink efficiency. You flat out cannot ignore or leave this thing alone in the zone, and just having one on your team is going to result in an abundance of map control as long as you can keep it getting in those locations. So that sounds incredibly ridiculous. So what did they do to compensate for it? Well, basically everything. The roll, while fast and stupidly ink efficient, just look at this background footage like what the hell. well also is not a one-shot at all and is incredibly limited and useless in higher levels of play because, you know, it's rolling. It's not that amazing. The horizontal flick has some of the worst damage I have ever seen. It caps out at 70, and even then you need to be basically point blank. And at max distance, this thing isn't even a 3-shot. It is a 4-shot with a minimum of 30 damage, making this one of the worst combat moves in the entire game. Even your vertical flick, the one thing that does allow you to kill quickly, is decently slow and has very limited range, essentially being a worse carbon vertical flick, but it can at least paint further away in order for you to move, I guess. It's just really not that great a flick either. And it keeps going. No part of the kit is to make it do anything other than painting as well. The wall is purely to protect yourself while you're painting over an area, and the vacuum is so you can stall out other specials while you get an ink tank refill. Even the wall and vac combo is so you can wall a vulnerable point like a flank while you use your vacuum on the objective. This is one of the most extreme weapon designs they have ever added to this game, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. This weapon feels absolutely abysmal in any mode that isn't zones, or any zones layout where it can't easily get and spam paint on the zone, and every part about the weapon, including its kit, completely locks it into this playstyle. There is extremely little flexibility even when compared to other support weapons. Part of this is the kit's fault, of course, which is really just made to only enable this paint spam and stalling playstyle, but I'd also argue that the main weapon really isn't built to be any form of flexible. I figured the vertical flick would be your way to contribute in a form of chip damage, so you would have to actively participate in some form of fights, but it's just not that good at it in order to be worth it, and I'm really questioning what this weapon design is going to lead to. Right now, it looks like it's just going to be cheesing zones and being the most annoying thing to fight, and then feeling terrible to use literally everywhere else, which feels just odd. Is it a good weapon? I mean, it has its use and it'll be really good at it, but design-wise, I kinda dislike it. I hope that they eventually tweak its damage numbers to be a bit better at comboing with things, such as having the horizontal flick do a bit more damage and have a minimum of 35, or having the vertical flick have more range. That, on top of a kit which gives it some flexibility, I think could lead to a more healthy playstyle, though that might be a lot considering the insane paint output it has. Hey, at least this one isn't spamming missiles, is actually good at its niche, and the roll is nice for new players learning the game. Part of me that really likes Splatoon 1 Dynamo is happy there's a roller that can actually effectively paint with its horizontal flick for once, but on the other hand, I feel like they went so extreme into having this be a paint tool. Dynamo had ink efficiency problems and cooldowns that force you to play aggressively at times, and this weapon doesn't because it's not supposed to have ink efficiency problems. I get this section has turned into being very negative about this weapon, and to be fair, I do actually like using it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I like the concept of a support roller. I wanted to see support in more weapon classes. And even though Dynamo exists, I think a second supportive roller with a bit of a different playstyle is a good addition. But especially as a support player, I really worry about how fun this is going to be to fight, because its playstyle does not look great. I'm uncertain about the future of this weapon, and I'm really curious to see what the devs are going to do with it, both in balance changes and in terms of its new kit. We'll have to see what they really want from this weapon, and at the very least, I think it's a concept that can have some promise, but it needs a lot of tweaking to be a bit better for the game and to work in more places than zones. Finally, we have the Splattershot Nova, the gun I see all shooter players complaining about already. And I kinda get it. I mean, it's a 5-shot and the RNG isn't great, so it feels very unreliable and is very odd to get used to. And on top of that, its range value is a little bit less than Pro, which doesn't look that great with the aforementioned problems. However, this is clearly not trying to be as jack-of-all-trades shooter nature as the other ones are. This is built to be a support. Its mobility, especially with run speed, is absolutely ridiculous. I would think of this more like a mid-range zap than anything else. On top of that, the weapon can paint for fairly long and paint very far away. Its paint isn't amazing, but being able to do so from a safer distance is a very valuable trait for it, and it's far from bad by any means. It also, being a shooter, has good startup and end lag frames and getting in and out of squid farm, which is of course very useful for it. Its jump RNG is the one part where this mobility part isn't really amazing, since it's really bad. Some intensify is definitely needed, which on top of the run speed and a bit of special charge up you want, makes it a bit gear dependent. However, I think the playstyle makes a lot more sense when taking a look at its kit. I have trashed point sensor before, and I think for most weapons it's not good, but this is actually one of the few ones where I kind of like it. With the paint range and mobility, it doesn't really struggle to get its special very much, which does actually help it get in, and with its high ink efficiency, throwing sensors is basically free, and something you can do while you're painting around without feeling any negative effects, so it's basically bonus location for your team, and I think it works fine. Killer Whale is really where this thing shines. If you think think about using it on something like a 52, the whales can force people to move, but the damage they output isn't really that useful. It's not going to be shaving off a shot to kill or anything. But with this thing's incredibly high fire rate, even one tiny hit from Killer Whale makes you a 4-shot, and even a little bit more of it will make you a 3-shot, meaning you can actually be extremely aggressive and chase people down with your high run speed while the whale is going off. This lets you very aggressively take space, and since the main weapon is already good at running around and painting the whole map to get a lot of these whales, you're going to get a lot of opportunities to run in. I think this is a really healthy support shooter playstyle. Whale's design ensures that you can't just be spamming it at a distance, and the mobility plays with being able to move forward, and I like that Killer Whale, unlike the ink vacuum on the Big Swig, turns you into a more aggressive weapon that has to move forward with your positioning. As a whole, I think this is going to be a lot harder for most shooter players to get used to, but if you're interested in support and also want tools to help your team push in more, I think the Nova is actually a great high-tier pick, and is especially good against Ninja Squid teams. I think people need to give this more of a try. As a whole, while none of these new weapons are super meta-defining, I like them. They have unique things they're good at, and special design that makes them stand out from other weapons, which is something I was a bit worried about. Big Swig is the only one I take problems with, and even then, I can definitely see what they were going for by having a more easily accessible roller for support, and I think with a different kit or some minor tweaks, it could end up being one of the coolest weapons in the game, even with the problems it has right now. If anything, this update made me more excited for new weapons they could add to the game, and for new support, since it seems like they have a bit of a preference to that. So, let me know what you guys think below, and I'll see you guys next time.